Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Taco Bites, your daily bite of Degen, episode 425.2. End of day recap, Sam Bankman trial, day 10. We gave you the recap from lunchtime. Court resumed at 2 p.m. Let's do a quick count real quick on the objection side, because I know there was some questions and bets on the over-unders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. 13. So if you had that over under on that, let me know what you had in the comments. And, we had only one sidebar. So that was sort of one of that was pulled from the prosecution. And I do apologize for the noise in the background. It is loud because in the other court behind us over there, Trump is, in trial today. And so there's a lot of police presence, I just know there's a lot of police presence. I haven't actually had a chance to go around and see what's around there. But this started off with the defense finishing off with Nishad Singh. And so one of the things that he then went to was straight up talking about money that Alameda was making, as they were talking originally about cutting Alameda out of FTX and what it was putting on the books. And Gary had responded back that Alameda was making 300 to 400 million per year. And then the big question in the group was, would the PR hit be worth it? That was the big question on that. And then so from there, the organization then sort of went, there was a in-person closing meeting about Alameda discussion, which included Caroline, Gary, and Nishad. Sam was not in attendance for that. But then online, they were talking via Signal and #organization, Nishad, Gary, Caroline, and Sam. One of the things that they did not talk about, but Nishad said was the elephant in the room, but not talked about, was the Alameda loans of FTX customers. And that was why Caroline Ellison said it was impossible to close all accounts, as that was one of the big things. One of the questions that the defense then asked Nishad was if he had done his own research on whether or not what would happen of closing accounts and what accounts to close or anything else with the finances, and he said he did not. So do your own research. Yeah. Then they jumped over to the September interaction between Nishad that we talked about yesterday, where Nishad and Sam met per Nishad's almost secretly on the balcony of their Bahamas penthouse. And that, one of the things that he sort of talked about was that he was wanting an apology from Sam. Really didn't cover why he wanted an apology and what that apology was supposed to be for, as Nishad was sort of already integrated into all of these actions that were going on, and that he was also feeling suicidal. Once again, a moment for any mental health issues. If at any time you feel either like harming yourself, harming others, or it's just one of those things where gray is just staying around too long, please reach out to any mental health expert. A lot of areas have private phone numbers you can call, and if you do not know who to reach out to or how to do that research to find out, please reach out to me. That would be kept 100% private, and I can help you do that research and find out. Or if you just need an ear, I can be that for you as well. But one of the things that they did talk about a little bit more deeper was, Caroline is really freaking about the aspect of Nishad wanting to separate FTX from Alameda. Then there was a long list of objections from the prosecution, as the defense was trying to get Nishad to talk about frivolous spending, and some of the aspects within that, which, was one of the things that they sort of really covered a lot on. And then they went back to Nishad's state of mind of around quitting, which they said was the first time, in 2018, then 2020, 2021, and 2022. And then they hopped back to the home that Nishad bought, that we first reported on earlier today, on Orcas Island, in October of 2022. And then what's really hilarious is that he bought the home, clarified that it was a home, when the defense said an apartment. And so this was, right after the huge amounts of frivolous spending that Nishad wanted FTX and Sam to cut down on. He spent $3.7 million that he borrowed, knowing that it might not have to be paid back. And this is the interesting aspect of it. He closed and wired the funds on November 1st, or he actually wired the funds on November 1st. As having closed many homes, you don't always wire on the same day you close, but you wire before you close. So he either closed on around November 1st, November 2nd, or November 3rd. And so that was $3.7 million. What I do not know is if that was he bought the house outright, or if that was a down payment towards it. How much left he was owed on it. After that, he then said that he gave it up, forfeited it. There was no further questions around that, like what that actually meant, who it was forfeited to. Tried to act like it was some sort of charity give, like he was like, oh, I felt really bad for customers, and that I knew when I took that $3.7 million, I knew it was customer funds, but I did it anyways, and I felt really bad about it, but I still did it. And so one of the things that the defense then sort of asked and brought up, a lot of his conversations with the FBI from January and February interviews, that he felt that did he think that FTX would last as a company for years? And this was in that balcony conversation with Sam, that was just him and Sam. And he did say that he thought that FTX would last as a company for years, even with all of this stuff going on. Then it went back to November 6th, text messages that Nishad had directly with Sam. So this was after he had already borrowed that $3.7 million. He then asked Sam if he could do fake trades on FTX that would post-date or predate certain token prices at higher prices, and that he could do paper trading to mark down both roughly $500 million worth of loans that he took from FTX, Alameda, and Sam, as well as a $80 million loan for donations to charities or political pieces. So it sounds like total donations to political that he stated was roughly around $80 million. So $80 million went through his accounts, which he talked about how much money just sort of went through his account that he didn't even know, and he assumed that they were loans. And then including the $10 million that he borrowed from he thinks was Sam to give to friends and family. He did say charity, but once again, Nishad talks a big game, but he is not that big in the follow through, it seems like. And so one of the questions that went back to was he asked if he could make that trade and to pay off those loans on paper. And Sam asked back, what does trade mean, with quotation marks for trade? Nishad responded back, sell FTT or Serum earlier in 2022, and backdate, and then he would then backdate the sales within the FTX ledger. And when I say ledger, just their account book. None of FTX's paper moving was on chain, and that was one of the things that we saw really sort of pushed FTX to be able to do a lot of these things. Then they talked more about the pro offer agreement that he got into on February 8th. after having many meetings, that he had both, on 11/22 and 12/8 that he had with the FBI signing documents. And then when they went back to about him buying the house, and him responding, he was like, there were points that he had pits in his stomach, but buying the house was not one of them. So based off of the actions that he did or was doing, that he knew were using customer funds, he says that he had pits in his stomach, but buying the house, spending $3.7 million worth of customer funds was not one of them. At this time, when the defense then tried to push another exhibit, 3501, witness monitor died at 2:30 p.m. So mark that on your bingo cards. We've had so far a jury monitor die, and now we have had the witness monitor die once. Long live the monitor. It was quick. Huge props to the clerk. He is an amazing clerk. Really cool on just an amazing dude. But got it fixed right away. Then there were several more objections from the defense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with a sidebar in between. Going back to January 9th. 19th, and so this was during his FBI conversations, and while he was giving testimony and notes to them, and the prosecution, did you ever deny money was given as loans, even though it was highly dated in both text messages and with attorneys and counsel that he worked really hard, and tax documents that he made sure that those loans were marked down, that money was marked down as loans for tax purposes within transmissions to his bank and through his bank, so that it would not hit as certain things. He then, confessed that he did not remember doing any of that. And so those notes were given as facts. And then a couple of objections. And then it was asked, do you recall meeting with the prosecution on money buying, talking about the money and buying the house and political campaigns, because one of the things that Nishad is really being pushed as pleading guilty to is campaign finance. So looks here that so far $80 million, and we will be getting tomorrow, thank you to an amazing reporter here, that we're actually going to be getting those exhibits. So we'll be able to push those out for you. And so after that, the defense rested, and then there was some redirect with the sidebar. And so first off, the prosecution asked, who did you commit campaign finance fraud with? And he named off Ryan Salam and Sam. Then that's when they asked him about the house, and he was like, I bought it and then I forfeited it. So we don't really know what that forfeited means. He gave it to a family member or something. Who knows? We will find out more, and that is me just being very biased. So please do not take that as any fact that he may have donated it to Salvation Army, may have forfeited it to the government. I do not know, but it was bought with customer funds. That is one thing that we do know and is fact. So then they went back to the September 22 text message between him and Sam, the loan of $477 million. No, it was really only on paper. He then one of the things was buying the equity in the company to avoid taxes. Originally, he had equity options to buy at $2.66 a share. They removed the strike on that and gave him a new strike price of $10.86, and he then had to make the $477 million loan, borrow from Alameda. So using customer funds to get that equity, and we will get you a good breakdown of how many shares that is roughly, but we do know that he had said earlier it was possibly around 6 to 7%. And so we'll be able to give you that number later on. But $477 million divided by $10.86 will give you that share amount of shares roughly. The reason he said that he did that was based off of what he got from in-house attorneys and everything like that, and directed from Sam to do it at that higher price to avoid taxes. So there was that piece. Then prosecution went back on the loans, and he talked about the loans in a loose sense. They were loans in a loose sense. And what was funny is he talked about with his Prime Trust and Wells Fargo account that money would show up in the bank from unknown sources or where it would go, but he still considered those loans. Now, so that was because multiple people had access to start transactions on his account, or send out wires, and as well as him signing an unknown number of Wells Fargo's blank checks for GAP, which is Guardians Against Pandemic, which is a super PAC that was ran by Gabe Bankman, among a few others. Gabe Bankman being Sam's younger brother. And so this is where he then started to talk about how he felt the scale of his wrongdoing was enormous, and started to use a lot of paraphrasing for how bad he felt about the things he was doing, and how he later realized this. After that, they followed up and dismissed him. And then Special Agent Richard Busick of the FBI from the CAS unit, so that is Cellular Analysis Survey Team, they talked about his pedigree, locating people in real time, basic and advanced courses that he took via the FBI for being part of CAS, over 4-week course that, meeting with like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, as well as a 40-hour radio frequency course at Florida Institute of Technology. He's located different people over 1,000 times, and he's testified 18 times. And this is where they gave out Sam's number, or the number that Sam said was his, based off of an email from P. Davis, 650-906-9179. As an AT&T phone. One of the things then was the exhibit amount that was submitted as evidence was over 14,000 pages for just this cellular activity and tracking and the results of it. They then sort of went into explanations of cell phone towers, when the phone is even off, tracking, and the cell site per blocks and everything like that. We then took a quick break. And then they went through the sort of a line of the items of how did you know this is Sam's, or what gave you this idea that this was Sam's number? And it was an email that Sam had sent to someone giving that number, saying, "Here's my cell phone." And then they ended up going off and showing off emails and dates and times that he was in New York, meeting with various people based off of emails from FTX or appointments that were set for him. H.E. Yasir Rumayan, on 9/21. Finance team members on 9/9 and 9/17. Meetings with the SALT Fund and FTX. Then going through with meeting with Anthony Lewis from Temasek, or the dinner with the mayor on March 3rd, 2022, and proof of that not only with the appointment, but then Ryan Miller's tweet, Ryan Coyne from Missoula Group. They showed then him being in Manhattan for different times. Jasmine Lee from IX Trading, as well as Ronan Ryan, and then different meetings with McKay at ECG Group US, and then including a dinner with President Clinton on 9/20/22. So that was September 20th, 2022, from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then there was emails for times and dates with Anthony Scaramucci, as well as phone numbers, and then emails from Bloomberg for follow-up, as well as then emails confirming dinner and meetings with the Minister of Investment from Saudi Arabia, that was Khalid Al-Fali, and then John Salt at Salt Organization. They then pushed into a new exhibit for a later witness, Ashton Curtis from JP Morgan Stanley, as well as individuals from Third Point, and then showed location bases at that as well. This is then when the prosecution ended, the defense then came out and asked just to sort of, not really any questions, but just sort of what they asked was, how did you know at any time that this was Sam's cell phone? You know, sort of like, so the government gave you these records, the government gave you this number, and then the government gave you these dates and times. And so whether or not he didn't get any of these and do any research to get these names and numbers himself. Then a little bit more on the timeline of trial. Looks like we will be done around the first week of November, if not sooner. Tomorrow, we have a couple people. One of the people that I'm most excited for is Professor Easton, financial expert. The defense wanted to really pull apart was not a crypto financial expert, but we will have fun. We will see what this happens, and we will see you on the flip side. And as always, we want to thank you for joining us. TacoBytes, your daily bite of Degen, episode 425.2, and we will see you on the flip side tomorrow. And as always, we end with our two greatest things. A closed mouth cannot be fed, and you cannot feed a closed mouth, meaning if no one knows you're looking for opportunity can never come a knocking, and if opportunity does come a knocking and no one answers, it will keep on walking. And as always, we end with the greatest, worst knock-knock joke on the face of the planet. We have said this joke 425.2 times. Keep it around for the next day, as we're going to probably say it again. But knock, knock. Who's there?